There's been a strong desire for change for a little while now. The cost of living over the past year has really increased. That inflation's high, interest rates are high. So people have been really feeling the pain and have wanted a change. They've wanted a bit of a reset. The Labour government's been in power now for 6 years, and it's been in charge through a number of major events, such as the Christchurch shooting in 2019. There was the volcanic eruption at White Island. There was also the COVID-19 pandemic, of course. So people have felt the government in their lives a lot more than usual, and they've just wanted a bit of a change.
Yeah. It is, of course, a shift to the conservative side of politics, but just how conservative are they? How right-wing are they?
Yeah, it is a shift to the right, but the National Party is still a centrist party, especially when you compare it to maybe other right-leaning or conservative governments overseas. It does have a number of areas where it wants to make some pretty big changes, such as cutting the effective rate that goes to beneficiaries. It also hasn't really provided a specific or detailed plan on how it wants to address climate change. So those are some big differences to the current government. Another interesting factor is the inclusion of national support partner, the ACT Party, which is a lot more right-leaning. And it proposes some ideas like a referendum on the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi. So that's going to be a really interesting thing to look at, to see how much influence that the ACT Party has.
Yeah, difficult for the new incoming Prime Minister to juggle. He's going to have to form some sort of coalition. What other options are there for Chris Luxon?
On the preliminary results that came out on Saturday night, the National and ACT could form a government with a one-seat majority, but we're waiting on the special votes. So these are votes that come from people who voted outside of their own electorates, as well as some overseas votes. And if we look back at past elections historically, National has lost 1 or 2 seats on those special votes. So that could have a big impact on the formation of a government, because National and ACT just wouldn't have that majority. So National might have to reach out to New Zealand first. It's a populist party here in New Zealand led by Winston Peters, and they may need to seek their support to form a government. So we're just waiting on those votes. They will be out on November the 3rd, and then we'll see the parties start to negotiate and that chatter about how the government will actually be formed.
Yeah. What is interesting too is there's been quite a resurgence in the Maori Party. What does that indicate to you?
Yeah, so prior to this election, the Māori Party held 1 of the 7 Māori electorates, and the Labour Party held the others. But after these results, the Māori Party now holds 4 of those electorates. And so that shows some dissatisfaction with the way that the Labour Party has addressed issues facing Māori. But Te Pāti Māori, the Māori Party, has become a lot more of a radical party over the past 3 years. It's really focused on being that Indigenous voice, and so that's appealed to a lot of people. One of the new Māori Party MPs is Hana Rawhiti Maipi Clark. She's a 21-year-old, and she's bet out Nanaia Mahuta, who is our current Foreign Affairs Minister. She's also been in Parliament for 27 years. So that's showing a real generational shift in those Māori seats.
Yeah, quite interesting. So some disparate issues there to grapple with. Tell us a little bit about Christopher Luxon. He's almost now the Jacinda Ardern of the Conservative side.
Yeah, so he's had a fairly meteoric rise to power. Christopher Luxon is the former chief executive of Air New Zealand. He only came into politics, into Parliament 3 years ago at the 2020 election, but he was always talked about as a future leader. He is close friends with former Prime Minister Sir John Key. So in 2021, there was a no confidence vote in the then National Party leader Judith Collins, and he took on the mantle of National Party leader. And over those past 2 years, he's really been building and becoming more popular with time. He's not quite at the level of Jacinda Ardern here in New Zealand, but of course there is time for that potentially to happen. So we'll just have to wait and see, but it's been a very quick rise for Christopher Luxon.
And what about the defeated Labour leader Chris Hipkins? He, of course, took over from Jacinda Ardern, whose star had started to wane a little, so it wasn't the easiest task.
Yeah, Jacinda Ardern's popularity has really fallen away over the past 2 years. There was some resentment or anger around the second half of New Zealand's COVID-19 response. And as that cost of living really started to bite, she did see her polling numbers start to fall. In some polls at the end of last year, just a few months before she resigned, her Labour Party was behind the National Party. So that was happening before Chris Hipkins came to power. But Chris Hipkins' future is currently unclear. He hasn't given away much information about what he's planning. He said he's going to take a bit of time to reflect, to refresh, as is natural, and then he'll make some decisions. The Labour Party's constitution says that they need to have a vote on the leader and whether they have confidence in the leader within 3 months of an election. So there should be something coming up.
Yeah. Well, interesting times ahead. Really good to talk to you, Jamie. Thank you.
Thank you, Beverly.